If you follow, work with, or like the cotton market, you probably already heard about Joe Nicosia. Joe has been a keynote speaker in the cotton community events for the last 30 years. He has a very unique vision, and what he said last month in São Paulo for the occasion of the 25th ANEA Dinner is not only very interesting to watch, but also a wake-up call for the whole community.
Okay, so this is what we're going to see in the video today. So first of all, the Brazilian Revolution. How much Brazil has grown in the last decade and how this is going to impact the global market. Number two, China won't save us this time, at least not in the short term. Why? Number three, the Brazilian advantage. How Brazil was able to gain so much market share in the last years. Brazilian challenges. What do the Brazilians have to fix in order to maintain or expand the market share they gain? How to save the industry. What is the main threat the cotton industry has today as a whole, and how we're going to organize ourselves to fight and avoid the threat in the near future.
My name is Perry Pedro, and I have been a trader and cotton market consultant for the last 23 years. If you like this kind of video, and if you think I should make more videos in English, please hit the subscribe and the like button so the algorithm know that he should send you more videos like this, and I know that I should make more things like this too. Okay, now let's go to business. The first thing he said, he started in Brazil talking about what has happened to the Brazilian growth and what were his expectations regarding the Brazilian growth. Okay, so US cotton production was at 5.1 million in 2005-06. Since then, it has remained in the range between 3 and 4 million tons. The US peaked at 3.7 in 21-22, but production has since then stayed between 2.5 and 3.1 for the last 4 seasons. However, if prices and conditions align, the US could easily bounce back to 4 million tons. The infrastructure is still in place, and government insurance and incentive policies remain available. Now talking about Australia, Australia, like Brazil, has no government subsidies. Except for 2 tragic years, the production has hovered between 800 and 1 million tons. In the last 5 seasons, it ranged between 1 and 1.2 million tons. Now Brazil, for 14 years, between 2006 and 2019, Brazil produces between 1 and 2 million tons annually. Then it took off, and it doubled the production between 19 and this year. It is projected to reach 4 million tons. Most cotton in Brazil is planted after soybeans. Growers choose between corn and cotton in the second crop window. If just 10% of the corn area planted in the second crop shifts to cotton, Brazil's cotton production could increase by 33%. What we did here is to combine Brazil and Australia into a third line, this light blue here, to show how much the southern hemisphere has grown. Back in 2005-2006, US alone was responsible for 80% of the exports of the machine-picked cotton, while Brazil and Australia combined were around 20%. Now, 20 years later, now Brazil and Australia combined are 60% of the machine-picked cotton on the world, while the US answers for 40%. Okay, so the main consequence of the fact that the southern hemisphere has grown as the market share of the machine-picked cotton exports is that back in the days when US was 80% of the exports, let's say you were a mill in Vietnam, for instance, and you only bought US cotton. So you probably buy this cotton by December shipment or Jan-Feb shipment when the exports would really pick up in the US. March, April, May. So by May, June, you would start looking at the statistics and figuring out how much cotton was left in the US for you to buy. Because you knew that by July, you would be 6 months away from the next crop. And if the cotton that was left for purchase, they didn't have a good quality, or you had any problems with shipments, you would be worried and you would be concerned about buying in advance from good suppliers and have this cotton delivered to you as fast as possible. It's not the same after Brazil and Australia became 60% of the cotton on the world. Again, machine picked cotton. Because of Brazil and Australia now, you can count on Brazilian cotton as early as August, September, or Australian cotton May, June. So now you have the cotton available if you are used to buy Brazilian cotton, and if you are willing to pay the premium for Australian cotton, you can have basically the supplying all around the year. And you're not anxious, or at least not that concerned about running out of cotton. The second country Joe talks about is China. Of course, China has been the force behind the consumption of cotton for the last years. But a couple of things have changed this thing in the last years. So the first of them is that China had a problem in its production in 22-23. And because of it, they went to the market and imported more cotton than they were used to. So China used to buy 1.2, 1.1 million tons a year. And in that particular year, they imported more than 3 million tons. What happened is that on the following years, the stock that they have accumulated, plus the fact that their yields and production went back to where it used to be, make them stop buying those quantities and revert to the regular 1 million, 1 point something tons. And that has created a gap when it comes to prices. Not only that, they're struggling with internal problems like the consumption, the royalty market crisis, the tariffs that Trump is imposing to them right now, and of course, the fact that we have wars happening all around the globe, mainly in Ukraine, between Ukraine and Russia right now, don't happen on our cause either. So we need China to bounce back. They have internal policies, economic policies, that are aiming in that direction. However, the GDP growth that we are witnessing right now is not enough to bring back the consumption that they used to have. On top of it, we know that they have dislocated part of their production to Vietnam. Not only them, Taiwan and South Korea did the same with part of the production. But the bottom line is that we can't count on China bouncing back its consumption and returning to the market to revert the price to the more healthy levels we wanted it to be. On the next topic, we are going to see what Brazil has been doing well and what Brazil has as a challenge and still have to improve, right? So according to him, Brazil is obviously doing something well because, as you can see, their market share is larger than the US market share in almost all the most important import markets. It's not larger in Mexico, but you know, Mexico is the neighbor of the US. There's nothing Brazilian growers can do about it, no matter how good they are. But either way, the best, in Joe's opinion, the good things that Brazil has been doing is because it's verticalized, as you know, it has a vertical production and ginning, and most of the growers have their own gin and their own storage. So what they do is, as they are producing their bales, they separate their bales in lots of 140, 124, 160, it doesn't matter, but that lot of similar bales, because they visually class the bales before grouping them together, is going to be the same lot throughout the whole chain. So it's supposed to go to the port as one lot, be loaded on the truck as one lot, and be exported into the containers in one lot. What it does is it speeds up the loading of the bales. The fact you can't pick up one bale here, another bale there, allows Brazilian growers to store this cotton outside a warehouse. It makes its storage cheaper, it makes its storage less dependable on people, on IT, and less risky, and faster. So this is a good thing, and Brazil should keep it, because right now storage costs in the US has been an issue, and a big part of the cost of the cotton in that particular country. So it's important for Brazilian growers to keep on doing this. That's another point that is important, that Brazil has to keep on growing, keep on being this reliable supplier of cotton to the whole world. Not only with the right quality, but in my opinion, that's not Joe, in my opinion, with the right tariffs. So the fact that it's less likely that they will have a surprise regarding to how much they're going to pay for this cotton is also important for the buyers at this moment. Now let's talk about the challenges that Brazil has. So one of the main challenges, and it has been this challenge for so many years, is logistic. Although the logistic in Brazil, the inland logistic, is not very different from the cost of logistic in the US, we know the infrastructure in Brazil is way less developed. So we need better roads, we need railroads, we need new ways to take this cotton and make it travel, everything it has to travel cheaper and in a safer way. Well, that's one thing. The other thing is, he points out to how dependent we are from the port of Santos. So when I started my career 23 years ago, we used to ship everything from a different port called Paranaguá. He's saying that we need to develop other ports. Many trading companies have been doing that for many years. We still don't have one good answer for this question, which other port is the one everyone's going to use. Salvador seems to be an obvious choice, although the cost of the inland freight is not very different from the inland freight we have to Santos. But this is something, according to him, and we all agree, we have to work with. Now, our main challenge in Brazil, according to him, and I would agree, is quality. So from the least important to the most important, in my opinion, he didn't make this rating. So I would say trash content is important, that Brazil finds its way reducing the trash content. The second thing he says, and it makes sense, we got to watch out for seed fragments. This has to do with varieties a lot. We have to keep on being careful in selecting the varieties that don't make seed fragments on the samples on the cotton itself. We have to watch out for SFI. This is very important for the buyers. Brazilian SFI is not astronomical, way higher than our competitors, but it is slightly higher depending on where you look at. So we got to watch out for this. And the most important thing is, as he said, honeydew. Brazil, in my experience, we have very few cases of honeydew during the year, but it has to be zero. It should be zero. Brazil has the growers are professional enough, and the chain and the associations are organized enough to make this become a zero problem. We have to eradicate it. I fully agree with him, and everyone who was there said that they will really look into that. It's a matter of going after and making sure that no cotton in Brazil will have honeydew. And last but not least important is what he's saying is, look, U.S. production went from 4 million tons to 3 million tons, more or less. Okay, it went down 700,000 tons, 800,000 tons, give it or take. But what he's saying is the infrastructure is there. The growers are still there. And the U.S. does have the possibility, the ability to bounce back to 4 million tons if the price is right, you know. And if that happens, we would get into a very costly price war between Brazil, Australia, and the US, and that there will be no winners out of this war. Brazil, of course, has the advantage of selling below New York, and in the US, of course, they won't sell below New York. They would rather deliver it to the board instead of doing so. So that's one advantage that Brazil has. But when you look at the US has a loan. They have some other insurances and government policies that will guarantee the grower advantages when it comes to hard times and prices close or below the cost of production. So there will be no winners if we get into a war. What he proposes, and it makes perfect sense, is that we should fight the reducing of the demand, i.e. the fact that synthetics are eating up our market share. So we should all look into synthetics and in a coordinated fashion understand and cooperate with each other to communicate to the world and to the final consumer that every time you buy something synthetic, you are being harmful to the environment, because cotton not only has a better carbon footprint, of course, but it's also more friendly to the environment. We have traceability, and we have what we call cotton disappears, right? Every man-made fiber cloth made in the history of humanity is still there somewhere in some trash. And the second problem that is coming to help us, that is becoming more and more, people are becoming more and more aware of it, is the microplastic. So microplastic, so it's a piece of plastic with less than 5 millimeters, and normally way less than that. So it's so small, sometimes you can't even see. But it does goes to the environment, it goes to the water, and it accumulates, apparently, in the fishes and in whatever we eat. So we've been reading and watching all those studies. He quotes a study that was live on a very popular show in the US called Good Morning America. And it was an Australian study that was posted in a very important scientific magazine called Nature. And what he said is that they analyzed the corpses of the deceased people, of course, and they analyzed the liver, the kidneys, and the brain of these people, looking for how much microplastic was there. And they found they had three conclusions. Number one, the brain is the most affected, is where they have the maximum quantity of plastic, on an average of 7 grams, which is like a plastic spoon in a brain. The second conclusion is that this weight, this accumulation, have been growing throughout the years. So yeah, if we don't do anything about it, will grow exponentially, apparently. And the third and most important issue is this is being very well correlated with cases of dementia. So in the people who had died and they had dementia, the amount of plastic in the brain was higher. So no one knows about it. It is still something that people are not aware of. And it's up to our chain, it's up to our industry to go there and tell those people that this is a problem. And one of the main ways to avoid this problem is to buy cotton clothes, basically. So here are the conclusions of this slightly more than 1 hour presentation. Number one, the amount of cotton we have in the world today, when compared to the consumption, seems to be enough. So we don't expect a big swing upwards coming from this place. Number two, the reduction of price we have in the last years were not enough to reduce the production in the South Hemisphere. So Brazil and Australia have increased its production despite being reduced. Number three, minimum price policies in China and in India. In China, the minimum price is around 1.18 and in India 80 cents, 90 cents, depending on where you look at. So those prices are enough to keep the area and the production where it is for the time being. So we won't have any help from supply reduction from those countries, it seems. Number 4, China. China have increased their imports in the crop 22-23, 3 times. So they went to 1.1 to 3.3 million tons. And because of that, right now, they increased their end stocks in 700,000 tons. But that's another reason why we shouldn't expect any help from China as it helped a couple of years ago. Last but not least, we need a new game plan. So the US production might bounce back at any time, and if that happens and we go into a price war, there will be no winners. We have to stop worrying about which slice of the pizza we're going to get, if it's larger or smaller, and we need to increase the size of the pizza. And to do that, we will have to pull off a huge effort from the whole chain, from the whole industry, globally. It's a huge challenge, but if there's any commodity that can do it, it's us. So let's do it. So my name is Perry Pedro. I've been a trader for 23 years and a cotton consultant for marketing. I help growers and industries to make their commercial management more professional, buy better and sell better. If you like this kind of content, and if you would like to receive more content like this, please hit like and subscribe. And if you're willing to read subtitles, please don't forget to have a look at my other videos in the channel. And if you have any suggestions or any questions or anything you would like to know, please drop in the comments and I'll look at it. Okay? Have a nice one. See you next time.